Hi all, welcome back to Actual Play. We've been playing a whole lot of Wolfspell on this channel, but tonight we're coming back with Crossing Worlds by Cass, who's running it for us. I'm very excited about it. Last session, which was a while back, we all made our really rad characters in their cool home, and now we're going to go on our first job or mission. So let's all say hi. Introduce ourselves. Brian, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, I'm Brian, they, them pronouns. I'm very cold and I'm ready to hack brains and smash cats.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Craig, he, him. Very excited to actually play. We spent a lot of time building the world, and I'm very excited to see what it's like. I'm sure it's going to be a blast. How about you, Gian?
Hi, I'm Gian, she, her pronouns. I'm also really excited to take these characters that we spent a while building for a spin. Sean, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Sean. I use he, him pronouns as well. Yeah, I Cass sent over the multi-core that our characters could be originally originate from, and I started getting excited about the world again. So yeah, I'm jazzed to see what our first mission looks like. How about you, Cass?
Hi, I'm Cass. I use she, her pronouns. And so, what we're planning on doing, because it has been, I think, a little over a month since we played, is just giving a brief uh, summary of the game and the world that everyone created, and then we're going to jump into the action. So, this is Crossing Worlds. It's a Forged in the Dark game. So, if you're familiar with Blades in the Dark or Scum and Villainy, it's a similar system. Only our game takes place in the far, far future when humans have learned how to terraform worlds, and basically, what happens is they terraform a world, corporations bid to be able to settle on it, and then people who want to go there work for that corporation, that multinational corporation, or multi core, as you heard Sean call it. And they go and they settle, and they just have to pay taxes to the Interstellar Union, sort of pay for the terraforming. On our world, things went wrong. They used their fabrication technology kind of in a rushed way, accidentally created a plague that killed out half the population, and the entire world was placed on quarantine. So their interstellar travel was deactivated with a kill switch, their fabrication technology was shut down, and any astrotech was completely shut down and locked away. And now the world is sort of overseen by the Interstellar Union. They're trying to make sure that they keep to the quarantine and keep the planet safe until they show that they're allowed to have that technology again. So,
Cass, wasn't part of the reason for the blood fever though also that the planet is like sentient and magical, and like we started doing weird, crazy experimentation as well as the terraforming?
yes. So, as it turns out, the world was not completely lacking in life like humans thought. It was the home of many creatures, one of which humans have come to call the Source, which is just this sort of omnipresent, omnipotent power that is in everything and connects all things. And then there's creatures known as the Kith who live in other dimensions. So, kind of spatially, they're on the planet, but in another dimension, so it's hard to perceive them. And so basically, what happened is the overseers came in, they started doing really strict regulations, kind of destroyed that relationship with the source, and the source fought back. And so now the source is something called the outbreak, which means when magic goes awry, it undoes terraforming. So I know we've got, jutting out red mountains in the middle of their downtown. There's places where the air has turned poisonous. And because of all of this, anything you want to do, you have to prove through an exam that you're credentialed to do. So everything is very restricted. And let me see. So for our group, they decided to create a team of couriers. They are good at moving things. It can be people, products, or missions across this kind of controlled police state. And they decided how they're going to rebel against the overseers is an ambition called Say I'm a Dreamer. So basically they want to improve their community and build up their community so they can actually change the world for the better. However, they have pretty much no relevance or influence in the world starting out, so they have to work for more powerful factions to sort of build up some reputation, some connections, so they can start doing all those things they've dreamed of. All right. Does that work as a recap? So before we jump into the action, or did anyone else have specific
Yeah.
questions?
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Oh no. Ugh,
The general
cool.
like
okay.
format of play then is,
Um,
as we're trying to get to this place of having some relevance, which is a mechanic in the game, is that we're doing jobs for our, is it for the various corporations that are in within our community, or a single, like, generally speaking, who are we working for as we try to sort of build ourselves up?
So some of that is the team gets to decide. There's factions. There's much a faction game, and they're broken down into what are called faction circles, kind of what they're interested in. So
Mhm.
you have the faction circle that's called the armory circle, and they're the ones who are allowed to sort of keep weapons and armor, and they're all the factions with focused on martial security. So you could work for them as kind of side operatives. But you also have the diversion or entertainment faction circle, and their job is to make people think less about how their life sucks and be more just happy with how things are. And so there's a lot of different factions around making games and entertainment, and you could work for them. The other thing that is an important one to highlight is so the team has a safe house that's embedded in a specific neighborhood, and their neighborhood is a faction. So they can also decide to work for their neighborhood and do jobs for them.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So, yeah, one way to think about it is any faction or any group that has at least three relevance in the world becomes someone you can work for. And so ranges everywhere from a relevance 3 faction to relevance 7.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool. And we start as relevance 0, right? Or are we based on our character's relevance, which is 0 to 3? Like, does our
So,
group have a relevance rating? Like,
mhm.
okay,
So the team starts with relevance 0. So some of our
got it.
characters are more relevant than their actual organization. So you as an individual have some pull, but people don't really know this group you formed or this team. You're
Got
not having a reputation yet.
So we're kind of small fry to start out with, but we're trying to gain more influence throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Cool.
And I think the last important mechanic to highlight is the team has picked an ideal that they say they're going to keep to. And as long as they follow their ideals, they can continue fighting their rebellion. And if they start going against their ideal, they build up something called their conformity tracker. And once they conform too much to the world, they can no longer be rebelling against it, and their team has to basically retire. And in a longer form of play, that's how a campaign ends. And there's a final phase to sort of roll and, based on decisions you made, see how the campaign's going to wrap up.
Got it.
And actually, let me I'm gonna see if I can get a link real quick for people to see the team sheet.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be awesome.
So I'm gonna drop, I hope that works. That goes to the team sheet. People should be able to see it. I just dropped it in Twitch chat. And so your teams
Oh, I'm not on the Twitch chat. Sorry, I was looking at
No
roll
worries.
20.
I'll throw it in roll 20
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah,
as
perfect.
well.
Sounds good. And so your team has decided that
Thank you, Sean.
you have the ideal of anarchy. So you want to empower people who are less relevant and challenge authority. But if you obey authority or try to control someone who's less relevant than you, then you are going to build up those conformity points.
Got it. Cool.
All right, so I think everything else will kind of come up in play. So if no one else has any questions, we'll just kind of jump into the first scene.
Yeah, really quick, Sean. How do I get? Oh, never mind. I think I answered my own question of how to get the Twitch chat up.
Oh yeah, twitch.tv/actual play.
Cool.
And yeah, and if you click on the little gear icon, you can say pop out, and then you just see the chat, as opposed to the watching the show as well.
Little gear icon.
Yeah.
Oh, I just learned that.
Oh yeah, it's over on the right, and you click on it, and you say pop out, and then it just gives you just the chat.
Got it. Chat. It's not doing it for me, but that's okay.
If it doesn't, then you could just mute the audio so you're not hearing
Yeah.
us in
Exactly. Yeah. I'll
surround
just do
sound.
that. Perfect. Awesome. Great.
All right. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to open on a scene where everything is a little bit blue. It's kind of that pre-dawn, early morning sheen of blue on everything. And we open on a very wide street that's paved. And in the middle, there's a canal running through it that's a much darker blue, almost black, and the water is perfectly smooth. And the view kind of pans out, and on the left-hand side, you can see there's this district of large, shuttered, abandoned-looking warehouses. And probably the first thing that stands out is it looks like no one's moving. You don't see any life, movement, light kind of on that side of the street. And then the camera pans out to the right, and we see what looks like just on the other side a very dense downtown. There's these huge steel skyscrapers jutting up. They're punctuated by artificial neon signs advertising different products. And you can see that there are light rails kind of in between the skyscrapers, just running, moving constantly. And there's kind of this hum of constant electricity. And then there's a moment of pause on that. And then the camera kind of speeds up as if you're hitting fast forward. And we see dawn come up. We see some light flood in. You can see that the sky is bright blue. The air has kind of a red, dusty look to it. And there's just this crowd building up in the street. And you see them very diverse ages and colors and clothing. And a lot of them seem to be carrying signs. And throughout the day, as the sun sort of moves, you just see the crowd getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when the camera kind of pauses again, going back to real time, you can see that there's this huge, loud crowd all crammed together. And on either side, you see a line of peacekeepers. And they're in these gray jumpsuits with what looks like gas masks. Right now, they're kind of pushed back on their heads so you can still see their faces. And all of them are holding rifles. And right now, you can see that they're trained down at the ground, but there's sort of this nervous energy from those peacekeepers bracketing in this crowd. And we move in on one of them. It's a peacekeeper who looks pretty young. He's shifting around kind of nervously. And you just sort of hear through his earpiece a voice saying, "All right, we can't screw this up again. If we mess up, we're all spending our days in the warehouse. Keep a sharp eye out." And then the camera kind of pans over to what looks like a platform. You can see a woman in kind of flowy white robes starting to walk towards it. And these signs are saying land allotments for all and freedom now. And you can hear people starting to chant land for all, land for all. And a woman gets to the podium and she starts to speak, kind of getting the crowd excited about how the overseers have kept up this barrier around the colony and said it's too dangerous for them to leave. But they all know that's lies and that they're being blocked from land, which would give life to so many. So this is the Lafa faction, who's friendly with your team, and it is the biggest rally they've had so far. And so all of you have kind of come to be in the vicinity because they're your friends and the faction that is hiring you at different periods. So why don't we just kind of move over to each of you and you can describe what you look like and kind of what you're doing as this rally starts getting going. Let's start. Sean, where is your character and can you kind of describe what they're doing and what they look like?
Sure. So Locker is standing right at the front. He's right in front of a peacekeeper. Just for sake of it, we'll say it's that same young, furtive-looking one that was like we heard on his mic earlier, and Locker is played by Craig Robinson, better known as Daryl Philbin or Doug Judy. He's got he's got a short beard and mustache. His hair is his hair is close. His hair is close cropped. He's a big guy. He's all four of his limbs have been replaced by big chrome cyber limbs at the shoulders and the hips. He doesn't like flash this cyber wear necessarily. Like he still wears clothing over it, but like he's not trying to hide it either. It's all fairly obvious. And he's dressed in like a sort of faded yellow T-shirt that has a new core logo on it, but it's all like faded and torn. There were like shirts that they gave out like hundreds of when they did some big product announcement ages ago, and that's what Locker has to wear. And he's standing there like as the guy's like twitching. He's like, "Nah, it's probably a bad idea. Nah, like he's like, I don't know if I do that. Nah, you hold on, slow down." Like he's just sort of like slowly like taunting and judging this peacekeeper, like trying not like so far that he's gonna like start a fight, but just like heckling him and sort of needling away at him. So, but like in a friendly-ish way, like, I don't know, it's a good idea. You sure about that? You make sure you load your gun this morning. You don't want to double check. And he's just kind of razzing the peacekeeper.
All right, and then I think we move over to Brian and Craig. Would your characters be together, or are we going to see separate shots for you two?
Well, that depends. Are you participating in the protest in any way?
I don't think my character would be. I mean, maybe like in the crowd observing. What about your character?
My character is definitely like kind of off to the side with a camera, not filming anyone yet, but just kind of like if there's something that will make the cops look bad and the protests look good, ready to film it. But until then, kind of setting up a face masking software for the protesters that they can't be identified if I film, because you don't want to have that on the feed.
Yeah, so I think my character is like moving toward the crowd towards you. Maybe he like went to the store and like got a couple beers and like brown paper bags and like bringing over towards you. My character is like a medium height, with like dyed neon blue hair and like a blue tattoo on his neck of an eagle. He's probably wearing like a brown jacket and just plain black t-shirt and blue jeans. Maybe he's got a hoodie on and has a covering his head, so he's not as visible. Walk through the crowd towards you.
I forgot to describe my character. I'm probably wearing my work clothes, so my character is very tall, has about as many cybernetic implants probably as Locker, but they're all very internal and like in their skull and spine. So if you were like a, what are they called, phrenologist, their head would just be really weirdly shaped. And it kind of flips out like this, and they've got this brown hair in a ponytail and this kind of like olive like jacket with some like insignias on it. No makeup, very plain looking.
All right, and then I think we would hand over to Gian. What is your character doing, and what do they look like?
Juno is very tall. She's like over 6 feet tall. And I think that she's wearing like a kind of off-white cotton gauze like tunic that goes down a little bit past her knees, and then over it a more fitted white like sleeveless tank that is in keeping with Capital fashion, but is like a much more planet-born like color scheme. She has gray hair that she wears in 2 buns and tends to wear a lot of makeup, like asymmetrical makeup, which is in fashion, but also serves the function of like kind of thwarting facial recognition technology and camera technology. And I think that she is square in the center of the crowd. I think that she's like sort of been there for a while, saying hi to people ambiently, kind of checking whatever portable communications tech is standard for people to have, like a phone. She doesn't look like pointedly like she has an agenda, but she's definitely someone that people have come up and said hi to. And anytime she catches like the attention of a peacekeeper, she sort of quietly goes to a slightly different sector of the square.
Nice. So I think we sort of focus on Juno slipping away, one of those points where you felt like maybe someone was watching you too long, starting to slip away in the crowd. And then we hear the sound almost like firecrackers going off. And there's a moment where there's silence and everything hangs still. And then you just hear screams start. And the camera pans from you across Zephyr, across October, and over back to Locker. And from Locker's viewpoint, we see the peacekeepers all raising their rifles, and one of them shouting over the intercom, "Gun." And then the scene just cuts to black. So there's kind of just this moment, and then a little text saying a few hours later. And when we open up, you four are sitting around a table in what looks like a very bland, almost staff lounge, like tan walls, white tiles, very like tan, boring cabinets. And the four of you probably look a little roughed up. I don't know if any of you got injuries in the riots that followed, but you're all kind of just sitting there in this empty room, and the door opens, and the woman who had been at the podium walks in. And you can see that she's got cuts on her face that she hasn't really treated. There seems to be a bruise starting to spread across her cheek. And she stops, and for a moment, you can just see that her entire body is tense. And she's going to look at whoever she thinks is the leader of your team. So you've done a few jobs for LAFA before. Of the four of you, who does she turn to as the leader?
Not October.
I think it would maybe be. I don't put like the spotlight. Maybe Juno, since she's so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think Juno's
Yeah.
our face, the one who's going to be talking the most, and the one that's the most influential. Makes sense to me.
Maybe. Yeah, I didn't want to speak for the group. I wanted to see what people would say. But yeah, that seems good.
Yeah.
All right, so Juno, she looks over at you, and for a second you can see that her eyes don't seem totally focused, and she kind of shakes herself and says, "Okay, good, you're here. I mean, I know you heard what happened, and it wasn't us. I swear it wasn't us. They're saying they're hitting us with these restrictions. It was none of our people. This is the third time. They're coming after us, and we can't go at them directly, so we're gonna need your help, because no one thinks you're LAFA, right? So we need your help to strike back."
Though she's not talking to him, Blocker, who has a big old ice pack on his face, it's like, "Damn girl, don't you worry. We know it wasn't you. We were right there. I was right there. I mean, like rifle butt to my face right there. You're good with us. We know you didn't start this." And he's got his like head back and like the ice pack like resting on his face.
I think Juno sort of looks for a moment of consideration at the table and then makes eye contact to ask, "What do you mean by help, and what do you mean by strike back?"
Well, we don't know everything yet. We're still trying to track some things down, but we know whoever they were funded by Crystal Winds. You know those people, the ones with the stalls everywhere and the love tea and the crystals that'll show your destiny and all that cheap crap that they sell to the off-worlders is, great magic. I don't know why they're going after us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like your calmness starts calming her down a little bit, and she sort of like pulls out a chair and like slumps into it. And she says, "So we need to give Crystal Winds something else to focus their money and time on." And she kind of stares at her hands for a second and then looks up, and she says, "So we know they have a package on the other side of the barrier. It's some big thing that they're bringing in. I need you to intercept that package and smuggle it back to us. We can take it from there. Nothing violent from you guys. We need that package.
What's in it?
Well, that's kind of on the need to know. I'm not convinced you need to know. Just don't open it, and there's going to be a lock on it that should probably stay on.
You say like no violence necessary, but if somebody has a package and then you decide you want to take that package from them and it's very important to them, there's usually some violence involved. Sort of, Blocker's sort of looking with one eye, like, are they leaving it unattended?
Well, we think we're kind of working through the messages. We think we found a drop site, so there'll be a window of time where you can go in. You should be able to get it. I don't think it's a wide window. I think it's you don't want to be slow, and you can see like she's starting to sort of stop focusing well again.
Where's the route?
So actually, let me move over. So this is a overview of the entire colony. The big white line is the barrier, and you can see there's the smaller colonies. You all are currently in the capital, which is that big center mass.
Mm-hmm.
And so she tells you that it is coming in through the Travex side of the barrier. So they think it's going to be coming in over there. You're going to have to kind of sneak through. She probably just sends you coordinates and you can sort of see it pop up that like it's just past Travex lines across the barrier.
Yeah. Do Zephyr or October have anything to say in this conversation? I just want to make sure that we get a chance to speak to.
So is this map like available for us to look at while she's explaining this to us, these coordinates?
Yeah. This would probably be like, I think what she does is you all have access to this map as like the colony map. And through the feed, she sends you the coordinates. So it sets up a little ping outside the barrier.
And I'm going to ask her, does she have any idea when they're going to make that stop? If at all?
She nods. She says, yeah, we'll send you the information the usual way. And she makes eye contact with October for a second. You should have, they're not making the drop till tomorrow morning. They're holding it off because of what happened today. So you'll have a little time to prepare.
October's eyes have been kind of glazed over, running through the feed during this, and kind of like, got the schedule, checking it out. Sounds good. And then just kind of glazes back over in internet mode.
Cass, what's this woman's name? Presumably we know who she is. We worked with her before.
Yeah, her name is Benali.
So Benali, there might be a few screws loose in here, after getting kicked in the head and all. Explain this to me. So Crystal Wind started this thing to make the protest go south, and we're trying to blackmail them or appease them or something else.
Well, they funded the people behind it. So we're going to you don't need to know what we're going to do with the package. It's better if you don't know. You don't want peacekeepers coming and you having answers to certain questions. Let's just say it's going to hurt their bottom line.
Is it smaller than a bread box?
I think she looks over at October, and October you got like the basic manifest. So you can see it's about, it looks like it would be probably needing 2 people to carry it. Maybe about 1 meter across, but you can see like the weight is pretty heavy and it's kind of an awkward rectangular shape.
Yeah, October kind of stretches their arms out to demonstrate and probably knocks something over because they're not visually paying attention to the space. About this big, this weight, probably two of us, maybe. No, probably two of us, even with Locker. And then lasers back over.
All right. So mechanically, if you want, if you accept the job, we'll actually move into what's called the prep phase, where you guys can get a little bit prepared for the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be any last things you'd want to say to Benali before we cut away?
Yeah, I think that Juno again looks up and says, "Benali, we're friends, and obviously we've been friends for a good long while. I do have no doubt that you appreciate the magnitude of what you're asking. It's very hard to keep a lockbox locked, not knowing what's inside. Is there any circumstance under which we should open it that we should know about?"
She kind of sighs and like sinks in on herself a little bit, and she says, "Okay, well, here's the thing. I don't know what's exactly inside. I know the the inspectors, they have this deal where they confiscate things when they're doing their inspecting, and they send some of that to Crystal Winds. So this is the latest payoff that they're sending. So, I mean, I know the last place they hit was Kurgan, so maybe there's weapons. I mean, that's why you probably don't want to shake it. But I don't know the details."
All right, we'll do our best. How does, out of character, how does the group feel about taking this job?
Oh, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I say we take it. Cool.
So I'm gonna just switch over a little bit to the prep phase handout. And this is kind of the bare bones of what we're going through. So the first is defining the team's next mission. So just to make it clear cut, you're taking a mission for Lafa. So it's a faction sort of mercenary job. And the success condition is that you're able to get the package intact back to Lafa.
Intact. Okay. Sorry.
And the payout, it's going to be a standard job. And so that equals about, you guys will each have 2 favors that you can call in with Lafa.
Okay. All right.
So what we do next is we move to a legwork phase. And I'm going to move us over so we can start defining it. What this is out of character, you guys are kind of going to brainstorm the obstacles that you might run into that interest you. So this is a little bit not even necessarily just about strategic learning things, because during the mission you can always flash back. But in some ways, as players, this is a way to tell me as a GM what you're interested in seeing. So, you know, basically what you ask about can become part of the mission. So that could range from what's the physical security to what are the crazy magical animals outside the barrier. Just basically whatever might be an obstacle that interests you. And once we brainstorm what those would be, then you get to make a couple rolls to see what you know about them going in.
Cool. I feel like I kind of took the lead on a lot of the last scene, so I'm really happy for everybody else to sort of like talk about their preferences before I jump in with mine.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, I have one. So if there's a dead drop, then that seems very spy versus spy, very cat and mouse kind of like there's going to be, you know, someone's going to leave a package and they're going to walk away, and then someone else is going to go pick up the package. So I'm curious about what the like sort of tactical layout, and you know, I'm envisioning something where we come in with a box that's a fake, it's a decoy or something like that. And so I want to know what sort of things we could do to intercept the handoff and not raise alarms. So I'm thinking like, who's going to be watching? Like, how could we set up a decoy? If it's a dead drop, the other person on the other end may not know what the box looks like. Maybe we can just bring a box that's about yay big and put it in its place, you know? And I'm thinking along the lines of like, do we have a cart or a vehicle? Because yes, 2 people can carry it, but practically speaking, like we'd want to slip it, we'd want to maneuver it off. So I'm wondering about those sort of like sleight of hand things that we could do to swap out a package.
Yeah.
So I heard a couple things that I'm just going to start taking notes and we can sort of nail them down. So I heard tactical layout, kind of the actual geography. I heard who might be observing. And then it sounds like also just the other parties involved is one obstacle you're interested in.
Yeah. And you could take a pick of those. I don't need to cover all of them, but yeah, all those things are interesting to me.
I goes too.
I want to know just like specifically who is going to be like there guarding this thing so that I can like mess with them ahead of time, set stuff up there.
So that sounds like definitely having this as one of them. So the other parties involved. So one thing I'm going to do, since we've gotten that twice, is as a GM, I give you guys a project clock based on how much you can learn about it ahead of time, so that when you're deciding what you're going to investigate, you know, is this something you can learn a lot about or something you can only learn a little bit about. And so this is gonna, let me,
Ooh, nice clocks.
so you can learn, for other parties involved, you can learn a little bit about it. You know that it's complicated learning a lot of details because it is taking place outside the barrier. So that information is going to be pretty well hidden.
Okay.
Juno's fucking nosy. She wants to know everything she can leading up to this. I know that she was like playing it really cool with the contact, but there's no way she would agree to a job without like getting every single piece of information she could ahead of time. So whatever you've got for us, I would love to read.
Yeah, is there like a dossier that was provided to October?
She provided just the very basics of the schedule, the object, and the location. And kind of she probably has told you from past jobs that they don't do too much investigation because they don't want anything clandestine linked back to Lafa.
Sure.
So she's hoping you can flesh some of that out.
Got it. So Lafa genuinely kind of operates as much in the dark as they can, is what I'm hearing.
Anything that's not part of their political campaign, they try to make sure does not come back to them because they want to seem like this squeaky clean, we care about land rights group.
Sure. Yeah. They're like the Sierra Club.
They don't want, you know, criminal activities such as things we might be doing.
They just want your signature on the ballot and
Selling
for
the-
you to, you know, move these locked packages that you don't know what's in them.
So for October, from the tech side of things, what might they be interested in knowing about?
I'm sorry, I've been a little distracted because Roll20 has been very strange for me at the moment. Yeah, other than just specifically who to hack to mess with, probably like, I don't know, is this thing gonna blow up? How are we getting through the barrier?
How are we gonna get back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of its own obstacle, is just the barrier.
Yeah, how are we going to get it through the barrier? Because presumably they were planning on sneaking it past, or they had a lawful way to get it past, but we don't. So,
And do we know where we're dropping off this package exactly? Like we take it from there.
Yeah, you would have that information.
Okay. I'm guessing it's on back on the other side of the barrier, right?
Yeah, so they've given you what you probably recognize as one of the less populated organizing sites for the Lafa group, hidden in the warehouse district where people tend to not go.
Where's that map again? Map of 7 colonies.
Yeah, you guys, for you have the handouts that can give you the sort of general layout.
So just to be clear, the capital is the center mass, and we're trying to go out toward the Travax colony.
Correct.
What are the?
So you-
Sorry,
oh no, go ahead and ask your question.
I was going to say, what are the complications of just taking a straight shot?
So until you can just take, if you get a little silvery line, that is just a mass light rail kind of transportation.
Yeah.
You can take that straight out to Travax with no more complications than the usual inspectors perhaps hassling people, peacekeepers throwing weight around. Travax is that multi-core's estate, and so generally you have to belong to their multi-core to go there or know someone.
Okay.
But after that, the biggest is going to be the barrier itself.
Oh, okay, got it. So really, it is just getting around the barrier is the main obstacle. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's probably the first obstacle you guys would run into.
Yeah. One of the things that Locker brought up, speaking character, was the layout of the drop. Obviously, if it's like a 1 meter long box, they would need to have some sort of vehicle to get to it. So depending on the layout of the terrain there, maybe there's like particular routes we could map out ahead of time. Maybe like block a path so we buy ourselves more time to make the switch.
Right.
All right. And then the one other thing I'll let you guys know, because it's kind of a world thing, is outside the barrier, magic is kind of wild. Or at least that's what the overseers say. I don't know if you've been outside the barrier to know if it's true, but according to the overseers, that's why they keep it in place, is because the source and the kith just kind of run wild outside the barrier.
Got it.
Okay. So the nature of Benali's speech of saying we want to move outside the barrier is the nature of that comes down to they say it's unsafe, but we believe it's habitable. Like that when they were talking about accessing the space, that's what they're talking about, was accessing behind the barrier.
Yeah, they're basically saying the overseers lie about everything. They're also lying about this, is kind of their stance.
Right.
So like, I get that we're closely affiliated with LAFA. I get that, like, to a great degree, land rights are something that we also hold as part of our personal ideals. But have any of our characters actually been outside the barrier, or is it just that, like, intrinsic suspicion of the authority of the planet, like, leads us to think that they're lying?
Yeah, that's up to the 4 of you. So
Right.
I would say the people who go outside the barrier the most often are the syndicate, who are known for smuggling people across the barrier. So if any of you are the type to have connections to the most powerful criminal faction, that'd probably increase your chances.
Got it. What do you think, guys? Have any of us actually been outside the barrier at any point?
I don't think I have.
I don't think I have.
I've been close because my dad runs a like area that's right next to the barrier for rich people to go and say they went outside the barrier. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think my character has either.
Yeah, I think it's like really, the feeling that I get is that outside the barrier is like genuinely mysterious for everyone in the capital and the outer colonies, that very, very, very few people go, and even fewer like come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That matches me as well.
Cool.
All right. So that would probably, what it's like out there could be encapsulated by the idea of just the barrier is an obstacle and like what you meet on the other side.
Yeah.
So to summarize, looking at the barrier, the other parties involved, and sort of the drop site terrain and route, does that cover the main obstacles?
I think so. Yeah. I really have nothing to add to that. I think that that's really solid.
Yep.
All right, cool. So you guys each have 2 legwork actions. So basically, you get to make 2 rolls to figure out how much you learn. And each time I fill in a segment, I will tell you something more about that obstacle.
Cool.
And you
So,
don't have. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, is this a point where we should get our character sheets out to like change stats and stuff as we go?
It would probably be, yeah, it'd be helpful to have them. And you can work on, since you have 2 actions, you don't have to work on the same one each time.
Okay.
But basically, you'll just explain a little bit, like, my character's interested in figuring this out, and this is kind of how they approach it. And based on that, we'll roll that action and see how much you learn.
Cool. Awesome.
So partly because I know you've done it before, October, as a player, do you mind being one of the first people?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm going to investigate the other parties involved. And I think I'm just going to try to get into a, like an administrative backdoor sort of loophole in the WINS database to just see if I can find like so-and-so assigned to this thing at this time. Sort of.
Yeah.
All right, so kind of looking at the Crystal Winds staffing through the feed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that sounds like you're gonna dive into the feed.
Yep.
And Crystal Winds, let me just bring them up a little bit. Okay, so Crystal Winds is Irrelevance 4 faction, and I believe you're Irrelevance 2. So kind of just at the base starting out, you don't have a lot of effect against them. So what you want to do is think about if you have expertise in this area, or if you can use press, so coercive force in some way to make your approach more effective. Or of course, you can always push yourself to increase your effect.
I'm just going to push myself to start. Let's just go with that. And I guess I'd want to operate.
Mm-hmm.
Ready. Oh, I forgot to
4.
add.
Oh, you want to roll another die?
I didn't set the effect. I was pushing for.
Oh, that's fine. So you push and you succeed with the 4. You're going to have a limited effect, so you're going to fill 1 segment. So what you know is it looks like Crystal Winds doesn't have any of their people going to the site, but they've assigned what's just called an outside contractor from Cash Shield Security to pick something up for them.
What was the name of it again? Cash Shield Security?
Yeah. Let me.
Nice.
And I think you know enough to know that they're a private security firm. That is sort of building a name for themselves, but they're not the top dog yet. They're kind of up and comers.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do what I just did with Crystal Winds to Cash Shield now, and just try to get like all their people who are like on active duty at the time, that sort of thing.
All right. For everyone who's on active duty in that area, or just you want the whole dump of the people?
As specific as I can narrow it down to like who is most likely to actually be there, but if I get the whole dump, that's still somewhat useful.
Mm-hmm. All right, so once again, you'll need to do something to increase your effect. And
what were the 3 options? There's pushing yourself. You spend the stress to add the effect. What were the first 2, guys?
So you can increase your effect factor. So if there's some way to leverage your relevance to help you out, if you have expertise in an area and you tap into that, or if you use what's called press, so some sort of coercion or force in your approach.
And just looking, because it's been a while since we've made these characters. Looking at our character sheets, is there some is that just something within the fiction that we would know, or would we look somewhere on our character sheet to see if we had expertise or to see if we had press?
That would basically be in the fiction. So you could say, you know, if October had worked in personnel management before, and you can kind of just make that up, and then it's true going forward to say, yes, I have been an HR specialist. I know how to get into these systems. Then that would give you that kind of expertise. Similarly, like press would be, I attack their system with a really nasty virus. And so that would be kind of in the fiction.
Got it. Cool.
Isn't it convenient that you just said what I was thinking of doing?
Yeah.
I want to basically get a like Trojan in one of the, I guess, like the most publicly knowable employee of Cash Shield, and just install kind of a Trojan to record all of their sensory input through their feed implant, and use that to kind of like get their password and then hack through there.
All right. So you're gonna kick up to standard with that because Cash Shield is not known for their tech savvy.
Mm.
Hey, I did it.
Yay. So got a 5. So that's with the standard. You're gonna fill in, you get 2 pieces of information. So let me ask you, what are the 2 things you're hoping your Trojan would find?
The people who are likely to be there, and like some sort of security password to like access their computers again in the future.
And all right, so what I'm going to give you is accessing the computers in the future. Later, you can call it on as a press to increase your effect because you know their weak point. And then who they're specifically. So it's a specific small team that they hired from Cash Shield who, you know, they specialize in taking pharma, so legal drugs from before the Overseer's arrival to give them powers that are kind of like magic, but it's all synthetic.
That sounds hardcore.
Yeah, rough stuff.
All right. So those are your 2 actions. Who has an idea of what they would be interested in of the remaining obstacles?
Let me take a look at it one more time.
I've got an idea for Locker.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Locker has Locker has worked in the forced entertainment industry, the industry of sending people ads whether they like them or not, and that's like the most aggressive kind of telecommuting or sort of telemarketing that you can imagine. Where I'm imagining like Minority Report, where you just turn and there's just like fucking ads accosting you. Like that's something he's worked in the past life, and so we see him perched on a building with like a cord coming out of his cyber arm, like jacked right into a security camera that's there, and he's like sort of typing in the air and whistling as he's going do 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 do, and he's just like working on the path that we're going to take on the barrier. I'm working on the barrier. I'm just like, it is impossible, I think, in this era to not have ads popping up at you all the time. So while you would imagine security cameras would be like this dedicated feed and they would just show you, you know, what's passing around, I'm still sure that even with that, there's still like pop-ups and things like that. So he's just uploading all sorts of porn, and like defacing all sorts of corporate logos. So it's like it's it's like some corporate logo, but like there's a penis on it, and like and then like various other things are like they're misspelled, with the idea of making it so that people don't think when they're looking at the security feeds, they don't think like, oh, our security feed's been hacked. They just think like, oh, what link did I click on to get all this goddamn porn? So I want to work. I want to use engineer to work on the barrier.
All right. Sounds
So.
great. It sounds like you're using expertise and press.
I think so. Yeah, that's well. Certainly, expertise was my goal. Like this is something that he's done professionally, even though he regrets it. And now he's sticking it against the man. But yeah, if press applies well, I'm all for it.
So that'll get you up to standard effect because with the barrier you're going against the overseers. But you'll get your nice 2 segments if you're able to pull it off.
Nice. All right. Standard. Let's see how we do. Yikes.
All
Never mind.
right. So 1 and 2, and I'm just gonna put failed porn ad defacing attack, and that may or may not come back up.
Yeah.
In the
Right.
future.
It's like, I think he gets a little distracted. He's like, he's like MS Paint drawing penises on things,
Yeah.
Gets a little stylus in the air. And he's like, what's that?
Oh, I was just saying Locker is an artiste. Of course he got distracted. He has to get all the dicks just so.
Exactly. And I think he stays in a feed. Like, I think he's like, you should really jump into these feeds and jump back out. And he's like, we need one more ball hair. Hold on. Like, I think he's sticking around too long.
Yes.
So whether he realizes that he's failed or not, the next thing he's going to do is be casing the physical security. And so this is like we see him like plug, like the cord zips back into his cyber arm, and then he is sort of like leaping between buildings. And when I say leaping, he's got these jump jets that allow him to literally fly between them. And so he's going for like rooftops and whatnot, and sort of casing it out. And so I wanted to use maneuver to sort of scout the to scout the area.
Awesome. And I think you're gonna have limited effect because they're sort of watching out for it, but also who expects a jump jetting cyborg? So you're not
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Totally ineffective.
Yeah. Limited sounds right.
I have to ask, what color is the flame of your jump jets?
Oh, that's such an important question. I like the blue hue that you were talking about. The sky being in the morning. So let's do like a blue flame with a white contrail.
Nice.
Oh yes, failed at that too. Awesome. Okay.
All right. So failed at jump jet surveillance, and I just imagine that maybe Locker's tried this before, and maybe your blue jump jets are kind of known.
Yeah.
They normally wouldn't necessarily be looking for a cyborg flying around, but the blue just catches it, and just in your feed, a message pops up in like if you think sort of the impact font from the overseers, and it just is, colonist cease and desist. This is your first warning. And then under that is probably paragraphs of like text about what that means.
Right.
That basically amounts to like, you will pay lots of money if you don't stop.
Right. All sorts of various fees. And I'm sure after this annoying thing of like, you can't click agree or accept, you have to like scroll through it. So like, we just see like Locker sitting on a roof being like this. He's like zipping his head. He's like, God damn it. Yes. Agree. I understand. And he's just like, cursing about the man as we see him. Obviously not scouting anything because he's just trying to get to the end of this EULA for a warning.
All right. So we fade out on that scene of the endless scrolling. And do we go to Juno or to Zephyr next?
I actually think Zephyr, because at this point most of the prep is like very tech and logistics based, and I don't think that's really Juno's area of expertise or skill.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So I think Zephyr wants to try to walk around towards where the barrier meets the edge and see if he can spot any like maintenance tunnels or other things like that that would allow us to slip past the barrier without having to go through a checkpoint.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you actually? Let me check. This is gonna be Travex. So you'd be doing that in the Travex estate, and
Oh, okay, it's bad news, right?
you are actually, because you guys picked Kurgan, that is the most relevant, powerful multi-core. So you, since you're just going against Travex, like there's no overseers on the planet-born land. You naturally have great effect.
Oh, okay, I'll take it. Sure. Um, and I was hoping like to use a seek to try to like find things that are
Yeah, that sounds like it.
okay. So I'll roll it. So risky, right? And
Yeah, it's a project roll, so there isn't too much risk right now. It'll just be failures. Give me something for later. Ooh, 6.
Ooh.
Nice. So were you doing the barrier obstacles when you were working
yeah,
on?
the barrier obstacle.
I'm glad somebody was successful at that. Locker's like, yeah, I did a ton.
All right. So you're looking, it sounded like the first question you had was, are there like maintenance tunnels or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, like off routes.
Yeah, I think what you see is where the barrier sort of meets the ground. It looks like an actual like electrical kind of energy barrier, and you can't see any obvious maintenance tunnels, but you can see that it seems like the barrier, there's certain posts that the barrier is coming out of, and so you would suspect that if there's a weak point, it would be related to those posts.
Okay.
And so you can ask me 2 other questions. What would you like to know about the barrier?
Let's see. Uh, there's a rail on top of it, right? So there's, or is it not a rail on top of it? Like a train.
The rail stops at the multi-core, the Travex estate.
Okay. But does it go between these states, like Treebax to New Rise? Or does
Yes.
it? Okay. Um, that's another question I could ask. How? I guess I don't know if this is no. That's a rude question. So like between Treebax and New Rise, there are posts there, right? And or they're not. So we could like go in between them, could we?
Yeah, I think maybe
Okay.
we see a scene of you, and you're a mystic with like the ability to climb up things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see you kind of walk, maybe even just walking up a mountain face, because out here it's very canyony, red mountains, and maybe we see you looking out, and you can see there's just this sort of open canyon country, and there you see the sort of shadow of posts continuing along the barrier out into the canyon.
Okay, I see. I can picture it. So kind of related to the one I just asked. Is there part of these posts that seem a little more like an uneven terrain that seems like it could be easier to manipulate?
Yeah, I think maybe what you notice is as you're around here, there aren't many well-worn trails. And so you probably don't have enough time to specifically find one that's weak. But the further you get away from the estate, the more you can see that it's pretty wild out here. And if something was to be destroyed or malfunctioned, it might not be discovered immediately.
Cool. And I guess the last thing I would ask for is um, to exit the barrier. How easy it is to just leave? Is it something that anyone can do, or does it raise flags or suspicions? Like
So
going from Travex out.
yeah, so you got your 3 details. Is that what you want to find out next? Does it do something else?
Oh, those are the things. Okay, never mind. I got it. Perfect. So I'll try to do the route 2 then.
Okay.
So what I'm picturing, like there's a monorail that runs across the edges of the circle.
Hmm.
Right. So what I would like to do is I would like to, and is it like I would like to like get onto the. Can I get on the train and ride it? Can anyone do that, or is there like a special pass you need?
If you have, basic credentials, which I
Okay.
believe you're a credentialed person, then yeah, it's kind of public transportation.
So I would like to do is definitely like to do is he would like to get on the train, the tram, whatever it is, and when it's getting towards like maybe midway through Messid to Trivex, maybe he'll like hop out the window and climb on top of it, and use some binoculars to try to scout the coordinates of the area. That we're gonna do the trial.
All right, I think the dangerous part of that is the maneuver.
Uh-huh.
So maybe let's have you roll that, and we'll
Okay.
see how well you
Hope I don't
get
fall
out
like
without
that.
being noticed. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make
I'll-
a super quick player request before that roll?
Mhm.
I have to pee so badly. Is it okay if I take like 2 minutes to do that and I'll get filled in on like what the roll was, or I can wait until right after the roll? One of the two.
Go ahead. I mean,
I mean,
Okay,
you can go ahead. Yeah, we'll let you know if he does.
Okay, great. Perfect. I'll be
Uh,
right back.
and I like to push myself for a better effect if I can.
All right.
I take 2 stress, right?
Yes, 2 stress, and then this is maintained by the inspectors who are pretty high relevant, so that would give you a limited effect.
Okay. So maneuver, risky. 6. Ooh,
Winning with the sixes.
lucky.
So yeah, you're able to pop up, use your binoculars, and then what is it about the route you wanted to know?
Just general topography and ways in and out, particular to the posts that I noticed earlier.
Mm-hmm. I think you can see that it is very to the barrier. It is incredibly canyony, and you see probably some rock slides while you're watching. And it seems like the closer it gets to the barrier, the more unstable the land is. And I think as you're observing, you can see that it looks like there's tiny shelters right next to the barrier that are kind of the steel square build that you associate with overseers and peacekeepers.
Okay, like posts. Cool.
All right. So while we wait for Gian, and we can go back and get some of her info when she comes, the last couple things, the prep phase, are pretty familiar if anyone's played a Forge in the Dark game. You're going to want to pick the general plan type, and then after we have that, pick your character's loadout or how much equipment you're going to carry. So I'll just bring, oh, is that?
Did you die?
No, no. Luckily, no.
No. Yay.
I get to keep playing.
Okay.
Perfect timing. So, Gian, it's just up to you what 2 prep actions you want to take. The main thing that Zephyr found out is that the terrain gets rocky and there's lots of rock slides and it's very unstable the closer it gets to the barrier.
Ooh.
But did detect that there's some what looks like posts or forts controlled by the overseers or the peacekeepers.
Got it. Okay. So it's more dangerous the further out you get, and there's more authoritarian control in those posts than away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I'm trying to find the prep actions in the Google Doc.
So basically what you can do is any of your regular character actions,
Oh, okay.
you can use those in how you describe. So if you're a broker, often your approach might be using people. So if there's any way you want to use your talkie skills to find out.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you as the GM, is there anyone on this train that we're all on who is worth talking to glean information?
All right, so I think that's kind of a cool, we cut down from Zephyr still up on the top of the train to you. And you probably, there's the ticket taker. I don't remember what their official name is, but the people who check your tickets and your credentials,
Yeah.
And you can see it's a young woman, maybe 19, like this might be one of her first jobs.
Mhm.
And she looks incredibly bored, just kind of slumped against the door, like kind of glazed expression as she's watching the landscape go by.
I'm gonna start flirting with her. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to like chat her up a little bit and appeal to just how dull the landscape is and gain her attention and just kind of really wrap her around my little finger as much as possible. Um, Let me see what I need to roll to make that happen.
So if you want to make her like you more, that would be mingle. If you want her to give you or do something specific, that would be more influence.
My influence is pretty strong, but I don't know what I want her from her yet. So, again, as the GM, do I know in character if she has any information that I'm seeking?
In terms of, I think it would be reasonable to know that she probably does this same route a lot, and
Mhm.
this is the same transportation that anyone going to this area would use. So if
Mm.
you're interested in security shifts or you're interested in who comes to the barrier, she would have been in a position to see like those patterns and know those kind of things.
Yeah, yeah. I think I do want to know both those things. Okay. So should I roll to see if I succeed first?
Yeah.
Okay. Remind me where the dice is. Oh, is it that little dice icon on the left?
If you open your character sheet, you can
Uh-huh.
actually click on the action you want to use, and it will bring up the window that you can use to roll your dice.
Got it. I have it in a separate window. I clicked influence and nothing happened. Let me try again.
It'll often be behind that window.
Oh, okay. Let me look. Oh, input value. Is that what I'm looking at? Or wait, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So position controlled.
Yeah, I mean, you're not. Well, I assume you're not intimidating her. You said you were trying to flirt with her.
Yeah,
So, yeah, controlled. She's bored. You're much more interesting than the same landscape she's seen
for
100
sure.
times.
Awesome. Um, Submit effect standard.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think I'll get bonus dice on influence, right? Because it's.
It will calculate them in for you.
Oh, okay, cool. It's a 0 to start with.
Yeah, so that should, it'll already put in your 2 that you have, and so that is just for any extra dice. So
Got
0
it.
should be great.
All right, so should I just hit submit?
Yeah,
See what happens?
there you go.
Where did I get? I don't see it.
So if you click on the little chat button in Roll20, it will show
Oh,
there.
okay.
So you rolled influence, you got a 4 and a 3.
Okay.
And so 1 to 3 is a failure, a 4 to 5 is a success but with complications, and then a
Got it.
6 is a success.
Okay.
So you got a 4. And so for this, because it's not really any risk, that means you succeed, and you can ask 2 questions of her.
Okay. Um, who? The first question is, who goes out to the barrier the most often? And then the second question, I think, is, are there any gaps in the security shifts?
She would tell you that the people who come out the most often are the peacekeepers who are signed out there, and the only other people she sees really much is the stupid Talavant tourists. And she kind of, you can hear her like disgust, and she tells you that they're just tourists who come out to gape at things.
I roll my eyes sympathetically.
And that probably like encourages her to go on for a little while about like the most obnoxious they've ever been and how they've demanded, you know, food service and complained about the cooking. And, you know, she kind of complains for a while, and you're able to work in about like the gaps. And she says that there's a period where nobody's coming in and out, and she assumes that means it's like shift change, and that happens every 8 hours.
Every 8 hours.
Mm.
Cool. That's good information to have.
All right. Do you want to take a second action or anything else? You want?
Let me see. I think I'm good with that. That's good, solid information.
All right. So the next step is we sort of cut back probably to your safe house, your cramped, tiny apartment that you all share in the capsule tower, and maybe see you sitting around your tiny table that folds out from the wall. And sort of narratively, we just see you guys talking and planning and just gesturing. But we're not going to show all the details of you making your plan. What you want to do is just pick, I'll pop it again, your plan type. And then you'll see it has, each plan type has a specific detail that
Okay.
you guys will decide on. And after that point, we'll get ready to jump into the mission.
Awesome. That's in.
And let me just,
Are you gonna drop that into Roll20?
yeah, it should have popped. Did it not?
Nah.
If you need in the handouts,
Mm-hmm.
it is under rules reference, the handout called prep phase.
Oh, okay, got it. All right, I see it now.
So we pick a plan type, and then what's the step after that? What's filling the details mean exactly?
Yeah, so for example, let's say your plan type was you wanted to barter. So you wanted to sort of get through the barrier bartering with someone. Then the detail is the desired resource. So what thing of value are you going to use for that?
Okay.
Hmm.
I like cunning or stealth. I think if it's a dead drop, it opens up a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
I think our information we have fits a stealth plan very well.
Okay. What are you thinking, Locker? Out of cunning or stealth?
You're muted, by the way, Sean. I think.
Oh.
I am. No wonder. I've been like, okay, cool. Yeah, no, just talk over me. It's fine. I don't know. I think I'm for. I don't think there's a lot of people that we're trying to manipulate, so I think it's more stealth. I think the idea would be something along the lines of us, we know that peacekeepers and tourists come through the barrier. We know where there's certain ways underneath it. So I feel like we'd be trying to disguise ourselves and sneak by. So stealth seems like the thing that makes the most sense here.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, so for stealth plan, the question or the detail you guys answer is, what is your point of infiltration?
I think we have like two, right? We can either go as a tourist, or we can try to go through the posts. I think the tourist one sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I think disguising ourselves as tourists would be like the least likely to attract attention. And knowing that there's those gaps every 8 hours, we could like try to aim for one of them as well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So yeah, I would say the point of entry in this case would be the point of infiltration would be during that gap when we know that they're not watching us.
Totally.
Does that work for you, October?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. So the next thing you guys will decide is how much equipment you carry, and you don't pick what you carry. You'll only need to check that off when you decide that you want to use it. But you do have to decide how much you're carrying. So if you have 3 checks worth of equipment, you appear very defenseless and non-threatening. 5 means you look like an average worker with kind of your standard protection. 7 is heavy and you look like a very dangerous mercenary. And you can each decide a different load that you want to carry.
Hmm.
Would we know how common it is for these tourists to have like bodyguards with them or anything?
I think that in the complaining, would have learned that they tend to be very wealthy people. So you'd probably know culturally, like having your own security is a normal thing.
That is a very good question. Thank you for asking it.
The cyber arms don't draw too much attention, I guess.
So yes, Locker can be your personal bodyguard if you would like.
Hey,
I think I'm
What
gonna
is that
go. I think that Juno is going to go with 3 checks worth of equipment. I think that looking like pretty non-threatening and unassuming is probably going to be her MO.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna go with 5 and try to be like a kind of, driver assistant type person.
I think I'm gonna go with 5 too, Zephyr.
All right. And
I think even though like there's a no, why not? Locker will look all kitted out. I'll go with heavy load 7.
all right. So what I'm thinking is we can do the engagement roll and then maybe take our break for everybody,
Yes.
sort of the halfway point, and then when we come back, we can
Sounds-
jump into the action.
Sounds great.
So, well, let me actually ask: do we want to do the engagement roll before our break or when we come back?
Maybe when we come back, actually, because I feel like it'll get the action going.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm good with that. All right, let me cue it up. So everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. If you sit tight for 5 minutes or so, we'll be back shortly and we'll go on this mission. See you all soon.